Welcome to Trending Update USA, and I am Steffan bringing you an in-depth analysis of a story that has sent ripples through the tennis community, the upcoming match between Aryna Sabalenka and Kyrgios. On the surface, this crossover clash between two of tennis' most dynamic personalities and mercurial talents might seem like a spectacle, a treat for fans, or a headline-grabbing moment in sports media. But digging deeper, analysts, insiders, and fans alike are beginning to realize that this matchup, while exciting in theory, carries some worrying implications for the WTA and for the broader narrative of women's tennis. Tonight, we explore why this match could be seen as bad news for the WTA, what it signifies for player perception, the sport's competitive integrity, and the long-term implications for the women's tour in terms of visibility, relevance, and public discourse. Tennis thrives on rivalries, on skill, on drama born out of pure competition. The WTA has built its identity over decades on the strength, resilience, and athleticism of its players. Names like Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Martina Navratilova, Steffi Graf, and more recently Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff have elevated the sport, not just through winning titles, but through consistently proving that women's tennis is about strategy, endurance, and intelligence, as much as power and flair. Each tournament, each season, contributes to a narrative where the focus remains on the athlete's skill, the drama of the competition, and the evolving tactical battles. But when a high-profile crossover exhibition or mixed-gender match enters the conversation, the delicate balance of perception can shift. And that is precisely why the upcoming match between Sabalenka and Kyrgios raises eyebrows. Aryna Sabalenka, the powerhouse from Belarus, is a player who commands respect on her own merits. Her aggressive baseline game, her powerful serve, and her fearless attitude have made her a dominant force in women's tennis. She has consistently proven that she can compete at the highest levels, defeating top-ranked opponents and making deep runs in Grand Slams and other prestigious events. Her rise has coincided with a period in which the WTA has been asserting itself, highlighting new stars, and attempting to carve out narratives that focus on the athletic and mental prowess of female competitors. Her talent is undeniable, her presence on the court magnetic, and her victories hard-earned. She embodies the competitive integrity of the WTA, and her journey is representative of what the women's tour strives to project: strength, skill, and legitimacy in the global tennis arena. Kyrgios, on the other hand, presents a contrasting, if equally complex, narrative. Kyrgios is a player who has achieved fame not only through talent but through personality, controversy, and spectacle. His matches often go viral not solely because of skill but because of his theatrics, his unpredictability, and at times, his confrontational behavior on court. While he is undeniably gifted, capable of defeating the very best on his day, his narrative is often framed around entertainment as much as excellence. The intersection of Sabalenka and Kyrgios thus sets up a scenario where the competitive integrity of women's tennis could be overshadowed by the drama of an exhibition mindset. For fans, it is tempting. After all, two high-profile players meeting in any context draws attention, views, and social media buzz. But for the WTA, which has historically fought for recognition equal to that of the ADP, it raises a serious concern. Will the focus shift from Sabalenka's skill to Kyrgios' antics, and in doing so, undermine the progress of women's tennis in the public eye? One of the first points analysts make is that cross-gender matchups inherently carry the risk of distorting public perception. While men's and women's tennis each have their own rich history, mixing narratives without clear competitive framing can lead audiences to undervalue female players. A match that pits a top WTA player against a top ADP player in a format that isn't strictly regulated as a professional competition can inadvertently send the message that women's victories must be validated against men to gain credibility. This is a dangerous narrative because it can subtly reinforce outdated biases, the idea that women's tennis is less, unless measured against men. Sabalenka, at the peak of her career, does not need such validation. She needs respect for her craft, her athleticism, and her accomplishments on the women's tour. But a match against Kyrgios, with all the accompanying hype, can unintentionally shift the spotlight away from her and onto a gendered spectacle that benefits male media figures and social media algorithms more than it does the WTA. Additionally, Kyrgios' personality introduces an unpredictable element that can detract from serious tennis discourse. Known for his trash talk, theatrics, and sometimes chaotic on-court behavior, Kyrgios dominates headlines by creating moments that overshadow his opponent. While this is not inherently negative, in the context of entertainment or fan engagement, it can be counterproductive when the aim is to elevate women's tennis. Media coverage may frame the story around Kyrgios' antics, social media reactions to his behavior, or viral moments rather than focusing on Sabalenka's technique, strategy, or performance. For a WTA player, this is not just a distraction, it is a shift in the narrative control. Instead of celebrating Sabalenka's athletic excellence, the conversation can become about spectacle, memes, or viral controversies, which dilutes the professional and competitive message of the WTA. Furthermore, this matchup also risks trivializing the WTA Finals, the Grand Slams, and other high-stakes tournaments. When exhibitions or crossover matches are highlighted with the same intensity as official tournaments, it can create a perception that regular competition isn't enough to generate excitement. Fans may begin to prioritize novelty over substance, and media outlets may give disproportionate coverage to entertainment-driven encounters rather than strategic, high-skill competitions. This trend could inadvertently harm WTA viewership metrics and sponsorship attention, which are crucial for the financial and cultural sustainability of the women's tour. In the long term, the WTA could face pressure to create spectacle-driven events rather than focusing on traditional competition, a scenario that undermines the sport's authenticity. Another important consideration is the physical and mental toll on Sabalenka herself. Preparing for a match against Kyrgios is not simply a matter of tactical readiness, it is a psychological challenge, because the context is different from any other competitive encounter she would face on the tour. She must balance public expectation, social media hype, and the unique psychological dynamics of playing against a male opponent who is known for unpredictability. This is a distraction from her training and preparation for the WTA calendar's critical events. Instead of focusing on Grand Slam preparation, ranking points, and the nuances of top-tier competition, Sabalenka is forced into a narrative-driven environment where performance is secondary to spectacle. Such dynamics, repeated over time, can erode focus, add unnecessary stress, and potentially impact long-term career trajectory if not managed carefully. From a broader perspective, there is a symbolic concern for women in tennis. The WTA has fought hard for parity, recognition, and respect in the world of professional sports. Exhibition matches against male players, particularly when they involve figures like Kyrgios who thrive on controversy, can unintentionally reinforce the idea that women's achievements need male comparison to be deemed interesting or valuable. This is not merely a theoretical issue. Public perception shapes sponsorship deals, fan engagement, and media representation. If the focus shifts from female athletes' excellence to cross-gender spectacle, it may subtly perpetuate gender biases in sports coverage, sponsorship prioritization, and fan culture. Media framing of this match also plays a significant role. Coverage from outlets that emphasize Kyrgios' personality, social media controversies, and entertainment value over analytical breakdown of Sabalenka's performance can distort the narrative further. Headlines may focus on Kyrgios versus Sabalenka, who will win, rather than Sabalenka's tactical brilliance tested in unique match format. Subtle differences in framing influence fan expectations and can perpetuate the notion that women's tennis requires a men's benchmark to generate attention. Analysts argue that careful framing is essential to protect the WTA's reputation and ensure that female athletes receive recognition for their own merit, not as a foil for entertainment-driven male narratives. Fan reactions are another angle worth examining. Tennis audiences are diverse, ranging from hardcore fans who follow every match closely to casual viewers who consume highlights, memes, and social media clips. For casual audiences, a match against a male player like Kyrgios may become more about viral moments, humorous commentary, and reaction content rather than genuine appreciation for Sabalenka's skill. This shift in consumption patterns, while it increases short-term visibility, risks undermining long-term fan engagement with the WTA. Fans may become conditioned to seek novelty-driven encounters over the consistency, quality, and strategic depth of regular women's tournaments. This could have implications for ticket sales, TV ratings, and overall interest in the tour. It is also important to consider the competitive fairness of this matchup. Men and women have physiological differences that make direct head-to-head competition inherently unpredictable and often non-representative of professional standards. While exhibitions are fun and generate buzz, treating them as headline events risks sending confusing signals about performance benchmarks. Sabalenka, as a professional athlete, should be celebrated for excellence within her own category, where her achievements are meaningful and comparable to other top female players. Highlighting crossover matches as defining events could unintentionally minimize the significance of WTA rankings, Grand Slam victories, and tournament triumphs, shifting attention from merit-based assessment to novelty-based spectacle. From the WTA's perspective, there is also a sponsorship and branding consideration. Corporate partners invest in the women's tour with the expectation that players' achievements, visibility, and marketability will be highlighted in authentic contexts. When exhibitions against male players dominate coverage, it can alter brand alignment, messaging, and expectations. Sponsors may begin to prioritize players who engage in crossover spectacles over those who excel in traditional tournament settings, creating a dynamic where performance may take a backseat to entertainment potential. Over time, this could influence investment decisions, endorsement opportunities, and the overall positioning of the WTA in global sports markets. There is also a historical lens to consider. Women's tennis has often fought for recognition in the shadow of men's tennis, battling societal biases, pay disparities, and media underrepresentation. Matches that blur gender distinctions in the public eye, especially when one participant is a polarizing male figure, risk reintroducing historical imbalances. While the intention may be entertainment or fan engagement, the effect can be counterproductive, overshadowing decades of progress in equality, representation, and competitive respect. Sabalenka's participation in this event may inadvertently be framed as a novelty, rather than a testament to her skill, which could undermine efforts to position WTA athletes as elite competitors in their own right. Critics argue that the WTA should focus on showcasing the strengths of its players within structured, high-stakes tournaments, where performance, strategy, and resilience are the deciding factors. Highlighting exhibitions or crossover matches as headline events can distract from the tour's strategic narrative, dilute competitive value, and risk normalizing entertainment over athleticism. While fan engagement is essential, sustainable growth for the WTA comes from emphasizing skill, rivalry, and the journey of female athletes who excel at the highest level, not from novelty spectacles that risk shifting attention away from core achievements. There is also the matter of precedent. If Sabalenka vs. Kyrgios is treated as a major event, it may encourage more crossover matches, media-driven exhibitions, and spectacle-focused storytelling in the future. While this may boost short-term attention, it risks creating a cycle where female athletes are increasingly positioned as participants in novelty-driven content rather than protagonists of their own competitive journeys. This could have long-term consequences for tour integrity, athlete development, and public perception of women's tennis as a serious, high-skill sport. The psychological impact on Sabalenka cannot be understated. Preparing for a match that exists in a hybrid space, part exhibition, part competitive narrative, and fully media event, requires mental agility, resilience, and focus. The distraction of external expectations, social media commentary, and fan speculation could affect her performance, not because of Kyrgios' skill, but because of the framing of the encounter. Unlike traditional tournaments, where performance is judged within clear parameters, crossover matches invite subjective evaluation, comparison, and commentary, creating a pressure environment distinct from professional competition. This can be mentally taxing, even for elite athletes accustomed to high-stakes competition. In addition, the WTA's long-term strategic positioning may be influenced by public reaction to this match. If audiences respond primarily to entertainment value, social media buzz, and viral moments rather than technical analysis, the tour may feel pressured to adjust programming, marketing, and event structure to meet these consumption patterns. This could inadvertently shift resources away from competitive development, junior programs, and player support systems, emphasizing short-term spectacle over long-term sustainability. It is also worth noting the potential impact on emerging players. Young athletes, observing media coverage, social media trends, and public reaction, may perceive crossover matches as a more effective path to recognition than excelling in traditional competition. This could alter priorities, training focus, and career trajectories in ways that are misaligned with the development of professional women's tennis. If novelty-driven exposure becomes a primary measure of success, the sport risks undervaluing the meritocratic systems that have allowed the WTA to flourish. Finally, while the match between Sabalenka and Kyrgios may generate temporary excitement, the broader context cannot be ignored. The WTA has spent decades cultivating legitimacy, credibility, and recognition in global sports. Exhibition matches, while entertaining, are not designed to showcase athletic excellence within the rigorous framework of professional competition. By positioning such encounters as headline events, there is a risk of undermining the WTA's core mission to celebrate, elevate, and showcase the skill, strategy, and resilience of female tennis players. Sabalenka's participation, while understandable, highlights the tension between entertainment-driven exposure and merit-based recognition, a tension the WTA must navigate carefully to protect its long-term integrity and reputation. In conclusion, the upcoming match between Aryna Sabalenka and Nick Kyrgios is a double-edged sword. While it may attract attention, views, and social media buzz, the implications for the WTA are concerning. From narrative distortion, media framing, and public perception to sponsorship considerations, competitive integrity, and psychological pressure, the potential negative consequences are significant. Sabalenka, as an elite WTA player, deserves recognition for her skill, strategic brilliance, and competitive achievements without being overshadowed by spectacle-driven media narratives. For the WTA, the challenge lies in ensuring that the sport continues to be celebrated for its excellence, athleticism, and legitimacy, rather than novelty or crossover entertainment. The discussion surrounding this match underscores a broader challenge in sports media, balancing attention-grabbing events with respect for professional achievement. While crossover encounters can be entertaining, they must be carefully framed to avoid undermining the athletes, the tour, and the competitive integrity that defines professional tennis. For Sabalenka, this match is not merely a contest of skill, it is a navigation of public perception, media framing, and narrative control. For the WTA, it is a reminder of the importance of protecting the sport's long-term credibility, and ensuring that female athletes' accomplishments remain at the forefront of public consciousness. As fans, analysts, and stakeholders reflect on this upcoming match, the key takeaway is clear. While spectacle can draw attention, recognition, respect, and legitimacy must come from merit, achievement, and skill. The WTA has made incredible strides in elevating women's tennis to a position of global significance. Events like Sabalenka vs. Kyrgios highlight the delicate balance between entertainment and competitive integrity, and the responsibility of all stakeholders, players, media, and fans, to ensure that the sport's core values are preserved even as it evolves. Stay tuned to Trending Update USA, where I am Steffan, as we continue to follow this story, provide analysis, and explore the evolving landscape of tennis. The intersection of skill, spectacle, and narrative is complex, and the outcomes of this match may resonate far beyond the scoreboard, influencing how the WTA is perceived, valued, and celebrated in years to come.